In this lesson, we're going to go ahead and start sculpting our head. So I've gone ahead and opened up ZBrush. I've also loaded in a base mesh that I've made. I've used it in the past and I'll leave it available for you guys. It's just a simple Dynamesh bust, as you can see. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the shape of the face. So if you remember, the jawline was really important. So that's the first thing I'm going to establish here. Pulling out a little bit of the chin and establishing that furrow line for the brow. Once that's done, it's time to sort of do a lot of tweaks to the head shape itself. So we're trying to get a very blocky sculpt right now. We're just trying to get the biggest shapes possible. And you see that taper to the forehead, making the head really big. And one of the things that I like to do is just to separate the area of the eyes instantly. So I'm going to use the flatten tool here. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the standard brush and start carving in the eyes. Now that I've pulled out the nose with the standard brush as well, it's time to reshape things. So you see I dug that hole really deep in the eye, so I'm going to have to pull that forward in a second here. There we go. As well as my chin is a little bit too far back. I don't really have a neck either, so I'm trying to pull that off. The basic idea here is just to block out the features. Once you have an idea of where they're going to be, then you can start refining them as you go. So there I cut in with the damn standard brush and then inflated the lips just to get the shape that I wanted to get. Making the mouth relatively large here. And now I'm going to move in on the nose and continue to tweak the shape of the face. Once I pull out the jawline, I realize that my forehead, just my head in general, is really small. You see, he has no real cranium, so I'm going to pull that up. Pushing it in as well over there. And now it's time to pull out my ears, because it's really hard to visualize the sculpt without having ears on there. So I pull it out with the clay brush. And then I use the move just to sort of adjust. And you can see how having ears really gives you a proportion gauge, basically. So I can tell that my head's a little bit too tiny in some areas because my ear really juts out a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead and push it to the back here. Remember that there's a big spacing there between the zygomatic and the ear. And I'm going to push that under the part underneath the mouth inside and pull the chin out. The important part here is to take your time. The difficult part in ZBrush is, in my opinion, always sculpting faces and things like that. So if you're trying to transform a male face into a female face, well, first thing is you need a really good male face. The reason I'm starting with the male face is because you really need to block out all the shapes properly on the male face, so that when you go and do the female version, you'll see that it will be like 20 minutes and it's done. Because it's going to be that easy once you've gone through the work of making this head look good. Now to sculpt a good head, how long do you need? Probably an hour or two, and you'll have a really nice head to work with. So don't worry about too much detail. You're not trying to make wrinkles or an old person. You're just trying to remember the basics of the facial structure, like the zygomatic, the frontal bone, and the nose itself, all that cartilage and how it works. And the idea is once that is completely established, it's going to be really easy to go back and just fix it or tweak it into a female face. But since the males tend to be a lot more defined and stronger in their shapes, to me, it's a lot easier to get a good-looking face if I make a male one right off the bat. So you can see I'm starting to get there, right? It's starting to look like a face, especially from the side. And now I'm just going to start tweaking all these shapes and proportions. As you can see, my main tools are going to be the clay, the standard, and the dam standard. Mostly the clay and the dam standard, as well as obviously smoothing a lot, which you see is what I'm doing. If you notice though, I'm always putting the jaw right underneath the ear. The jaw ends before the ear, so make sure you don't connect the jaw to the ear. That's a mistake that a lot of people make. I'm also adding the thyroid there, which is the Adam's apple, which is another thing that men have that women don't. And it's slowly starting to take shape. We're definitely getting somewhere. I'm going to start refining a little bit of the nose now, as well as the space in between the nose and the lips. You want to be careful here not to make it too big, otherwise your characters will start looking a little bit more simian, because that's just how it goes. You know, the bigger the space between the nose and the mouth, the more simian it's going to look. So that's the only animal that really looks like that are the monkeys and gorillas and such. Continuing to tweak. As you can see, there's a lot to be done still. And we're going to spend a good amount of time here sculpting the head, just so you can see the process and definitely see that there are no secrets, and I'm not going to jump ahead or something like that. I'm going to get you to a really good point so you can follow along, and then, you know, if I need to do some tweaks in between lessons, then I will, in the interest of time, so it doesn't take too long, because the end result is really supposed to be simple. You want to simplify the shapes. My face is very long here, by the way, so I'm going to notice that fairly soon, and I'm going to tweak it, as you can see. Just trying to get that proportion to look right. Gonna pull out a bigger neck. Just gonna make him bigger overall, because that's gonna make him look more manly from the side. And now what I'm gonna do is continue to tweak the back of the head here. As you can see, a few tweaks to the shapes is very important. It tends to allow you to visualize the model in a whole different light. So just using the move tool here, just taking a look at the model, smoothing out some of these rough edges, and then seeing what's going on. If you notice, I have a real small amount of skull on the top, so I'll have to fix that. But for now, I'm focused on the zygomatic right there that I just sculpted in, and the nose. In all honesty, it's probably time to start dividing up this model, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. And there's a lot of things that could be done still in this subdivision. It really pays to be patient when sculpting. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this case. But what we're going to do is, in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and continue sculpting our male head. So now you've seen how I more or less start my sculpts. We can keep going now and try to get this to a more finished state. Still a little ways to go, but there's definitely a lot of improvement from our base mesh. So I will see you guys in the next lesson.